Good evening, parents or guardians. My name is Mr. Vega, and I'm going to be your student's sixth grade U.S. history teacher. I'm going to be using this time this evening to discuss, to kind of go through a litany of things that um, probably would take longer than 10 minutes to do, but I'm going to do my best to get through them. And if you do have any questions for me of something that I'm not covering right now, just let me know. Send me an email, and I will be happy to discuss something with your inquiry one-on-one. So there's a couple of things that we are going to be, like I said, going through. And in this limited time that we have together, I'm going to start off by asking for just so you can have a bit of grace for me, because this is, as for all of us that we're experiencing, and I'm sure that you're all as tired of hearing of it as I'm of saying it, but this is such a unique situation, to say the least. And so I think we're all doing our best to kind of just go through it and do what's right for our students. So again, allow me to introduce myself. I'm Mr. Vega. I have been teaching at GW for 9 years now, and I have exclusively been teaching sixth grade for that entire time. So I do have quite a bit of experience teaching this grade level and students just like yours. And so I am looking forward to, again, going through this year with your students and really kind of introduce them to the secondary education, their beginning of their middle school years. This is a huge transition year for your sixth graders, and the academics are important, but even as much so, them transitioning from an elementary setting to a secondary setting, ultimately up through their high school years. So this is something that I enjoy doing, and I am looking forward to again this year. For those parents that have their students in my second period or my fourth period, there is also another teacher that I work with. Her name is Miss Swan. She will be working with my ELL, my English Language Learner population. I've had the privilege of working with her in the past, and so we do have a good working relationship. I am looking forward to working with her again. And if you have any questions for me for those particular parents, please let me know. I can put you in touch with Miss Swan if you have questions for her as well. So we have quite a bit to talk about and a very limited amount of time to do so. So I'm going to start off with Canvas this year. I'm actually quite familiar with Canvas, at least parts of it, especially the main means of communication for the students and for yourselves as parents, is through announcements. This is the area in Canvas where I post, again, announcements about different things that are coming up in class, whether they be assignments, tests, quizzes, projects due, something interesting that I came across that I find interesting, obviously, for the students. And so I will be posting all of that information there. Something else that's coming up this year that's a bit new, and actually I've been wrangling through really with our technology specialist, is assignments. So this is something relatively new. It's not something that I've done since personally I'm a very old school teacher. I'm a firm believer in the paper and pencil, but that's going to be a little bit more difficult to do this year. And so this is a platform within Canvas in which we post assignments, but they're linked through Google Docs, and then they are shunted over to the gradebook. And so everything is done within Canvas system. So it's something a bit new. There is a lot of not so intuitive steps that I have to do on my end. So I'm working through it. And so a lot of your students' assignments will probably be done through Canvas through assignments and not individual assignments I would give normally on a piece of paper and have turned into me. Again, via that same way. We are going to be using a textbook online. We are still setting things up for this year in terms of how we are going to do things in the classroom. So I haven't utilized a textbook, but there is an online textbook. It's a National Geographic textbook. It's actually really good so far from what I've done. And they will be receiving instruction and links through Canvas as we progress. In terms of what we're going to be covering this year, I'm going to go through that in a moment, but I just want to explain to you my personal teaching philosophy just very quickly. So, and if you have questions on that, please let me know. So I am a firm believer in making history as fun as it possibly can be, because it is a unique story with lots of dramatic moments and characters. And history is a subject that can be extremely boring if you were taught like I was, in which, here's a textbook and here is, read the chapter and then do the questions at the end and then next thing. And so it's just a lot of facts and figures without any greater context. And so I tried to eliminate that. We do use textbook work, of course you have to. However, we have to supplement that. And so what I like to do is actually do a lot of, projects And readings of primary sources. History is rooted in the study of primary sources. So not just understanding, that there was a Declaration of Independence signed in 1776. That's great. I'm glad that you know that. But what is the significance of that? Why did all these people sign their name to this document and basically admit that they're traitors to Britain and this is a death warrant for them? So why did they do that? Understanding it, actually reading the declaration, actually reading the documentation instead of just reading about it in a textbook, but going to the actual source material is something that I am really, really passionate about. And so your students will be doing a lot of that this year. We won't just be reading about these events. We'll be going into the documentation and figuring out what is going on here, what is the context, so they get a greater understanding of what's happening. That to me is more important. They understand the why somebody did something, or why do people act the way they do in a particular time period, than just what did they do. That to me is way more important. So in terms of what we'll be covering this year, we're going to follow our standard curriculum. And so we will start the year off as we are now with Native Americans. After the Native American unit, which is an introductory unit because we talk about Native Americans all year long. We move on to the early explorers, but the explorers that came and explored what is now the United States. After we're done with that, we're going to move to colonial America, the 13 colonies, and then the American Revolution, the straining relationship with Britain, and the war. After the war is won, we start talking about early American government, so very basic introduction to civics, and so we talk about the the Constitution and the Articles of Confederation, and then from there we move on into Western expansion. Now the United States is a country, and now how do they move across the entire country, the entire continent rather, until they hit the Pacific, and after that we talk about the Civil War. And we end the year with the end of the Civil War, and then next year your students will pick up again in 7th grade with Reconstruction. After we're done with that, we are going to talk about right now the grading system, which is fairly standard. You will hear this from all your teachers. The formative assignments are worth 40% of the grade, and the summative assignments are worth 60. If you have any questions on that, please just let me know. But summative assignments are essentially just tests and quizzes and things like that. In terms of Zoom expectations, again, I don't want to belabor this too much. I haven't had any issues with it so far this year, thank goodness. Staying muted, if you're asked to stay muted, use the hand raising feature and stuff like that. They're all pretty standard. And so far, your students have been doing a really good job with that. So I don't want to spend too much time on that. Attendance. Again, attendance is mandatory, of course. This is not something that I've had, again, too much issue with. I know that a lot of students have had some technical issues. If that's the case, just let me know. We'll figure it out. I'm not going to hold it against your student because there's 3 or 4 people using the Wi-Fi in-house at the same time, and then there's connectivity issues. That's not their fault, and so they shouldn't be penalized for that. So I had already had discussion with some parents about some students coming in late because they were having problems, and then I forgot to change them over, and that has been done. So please, if that has happened and there's issues with students missing class or something like that, we'll work that out. Then last thing I want to talk about, or second to last thing, are the asynchronous Mondays. So on Mondays, I'll be posting an assignment or review on Canvas, whether or not they have to review for a test or quiz or a project, or are there something new like today where I posted a video that I wanted the students to watch, which in case they have had issues with that, because there were some issues with the link, I actually created an account for another service, and then I upload the link through there, and it seems to be working now. And so that should be taken care of, but that's what you should be looking for on Canvas on Mondays, or it just might be review day. We will, it's going to depend on where we are in the year. The last thing that I have 1 minute to talk about is the Rising Titan block, which is right now for me going to be used for review, catch up, make up work. I have some ideas of something I want to turn it into, whether I've had some students ask me if I can do a debate club or perhaps even like a book club, because I think literacy is extremely important, and I think that students should be reading some classic literature as well as just the regular stuff that they enjoy reading. But I think students should need to be reading a lot more. And so I have some ideas of what I want to turn into eventually, but right now, just because of the way things are moving, I'm going to keep it strictly a makeup work review, question time, maybe even extended office hours. I'm still working out the details. If there's something that you have questions on, but I didn't get to, please just send me an email, and I look forward to hearing from you, and it was a pleasure speaking with you this evening.